we have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle,
is to actually
governs the conduct of
create
nations.
a new world
With all
order.
the recent events regarding national security and the NSA spying on the American people via Snowden and now other investigations, there is just so much information. This is absolutely nothing new. In fact, the truth is that there are plans in place since the 1950s to actually comfortably merge us with the Soviet Union, which really would have been the idea of communism and world socialism. Rowan Gaither, the head of the Ford Foundation, came out with this, and he made a statement to that effect in 1953 to Norman Dodd, who was tasked with investigating the tax-exempt foundations to determine that if they were trying to be subversive against the the freedom and liberty of the American people is true, in the Constitution, of course. And in fact, there is a plan to replace the Constitution in the event of some so-called national emergency, but there is no plan to restore it. Now, this is, again, dangerous. Now, there's a lot of things that are coming out, and the way that this has been put into place, and all of the proof of it, I will reveal in just a moment. But it's all documented, it's all true, and our government has a secret government ready and willing and able to take over control of the government in the event of this catastrophe happening. And this is the documentation.
Here is the source information that I'm about to give you. First of all, most of it is coming from the weekly compilation of presidential documents, Office of the Federal Register, National Archives and Records Administration, Washington, D.C., 1950 to the present. Also, Howard Witt's Lawyers Press U.S. on Martial Law Plan, Chicago Tribune, August 15th, 1983. Bureaucrats Get Ready for a Presidential Order, which was in Spotlight in Washington, D.C., July 27th, 1987. Richard Pollock, The Mysterious Mountain. Eve Pell's The Backbone of the Hidden Government, in the Nation, June 19, 1989. Lanny Sinkin, Democracy at Risk if Covert Bill Passes, Another View, Los Angeles Daily News, September 19, 1990. So all of this is just to reinforce how long this has been going on and how diligent these efforts, because many of these bills don't pass, but many of them have passed, and they're on the books, and they're executive orders, and something else, which is known as National Security Directives. The following information, which is also sourced via Behold a Pale Horse by William Cooper, goes into this in great detail, and it's a great boil down of this plan, which is ongoing, to take away the rights of the American people and put in martial law. Now, martial law has technically never been suspended after the Civil War, but most people don't know that. And most people also don't know that the Act of 1871, creating Washington, D.C., also created the Corporation of the United States, for which is owned, believe it or not, the Bank of England and the British Crown have ownership rights to this corporation. This is all information that is suppressed, obviously, for obvious reasons. But now you can see why things are as they are. Now, national security directives have become the de facto legislative vehicle of the national security state. Somewhere within the volumes of secret NSD directives, there is a plan to suspend the Constitution of the United States of America. The existence of this plan surfaced during the Iran-Contra hearings.
Colonel North, in your work at the NSC, were you not assigned at one time to work on plans for the continuity of government in the event of a major disaster?
Mr. Chairman.
I believe that question touches upon a highly sensitive and classified area, so may I request that you not touch upon that, sir.
I was particularly concerned, Mr. Chairman, because I read in Miami papers and several others that there had been a plan developed by that same agency, a contingency plan in the event of emergency that would suspend the American Constitution. And I was deeply concerned about it and wondered if that was the area in which he had worked. believe that it was, but I wanted to get his
May I most
confirmation.
respectfully request that that matter not be touched upon at this stage. If we wish to get into this, certain arrangements can be made for an executive session.
And tragically, the only member who got close was Jack Brooks, and he was stopped by the chairman. But the truth of the matter is that, yes, you do have those standby provisions, and the plans are there, and the statutory emergency plans are there, whereby you could, in the name of stopping terrorism, apprehend, invoke the military in times of passion and in times of great fear. What to the eyes of the person and the mind of a person in time of relative peace and stability seem impossible become very real, very logical, very possible.
Well, we never learned the outcome of that secret, special, closed-door session that Senator Inouye from Hawaii was referring to. I'd also like to understand how they could have the right to suspend the Constitution for any reason, at any time, and under any conditions. Who gives any branch of government the right to do that? Mount Weather is so shrouded in secrecy that 99.9% of Americans have never heard of it. FEMA, however, is another story. Remember Hurricane Katrina? Well, what about Hurricane Hugo? Remember the federal agency, FEMA, that was sent to handle those emergencies? It was thrown out by citizens because of gross incompetence the first time with Hugo. And of course, we know what happened after that. FEMA was incompetent because emergency management is just a guise for its real purpose, which is to take over local, state, and federal government in case of a national emergency. The only way FEMA could do such a thing as if the Constitution were suspended and martial law were to be declared. Therefore, it is a very existence of proof that there is a plan to suspend the Constitution, and of course it does exist. Now, Mount Weather is a sleepy little town just out of Bluemont, Virginia, about 46 miles west of Washington, D.C. It's an area of wilderness covering what has been called the toughest granite rock in the United States. The area is surrounded by signs marked restricted area, and the installation has been declared a restricted area. Unauthorized entry is prohibited. Other signs state all persons and vehicles entering here on are liable to search. Photographing, making notes, drawings, maps, or graphic representations of this area and activities is prohibited. Such material found in the possession of unauthorized persons will be confiscated. Internal Security Act of 1950. The installation is beneath a mountain, and its name is the Western Virginia Office of Controlled Conflict Operations. Interesting, right? Controlled Conflict Operations. Its nickname is Mount Weather. It was ordered to be built by the Federal Civil Defense Administration, which is now the Federal Preparedness Agency. Mount Weather was designed in the early 1950s as a part of a civil defense program to house and protect the executive branch of the federal government. The office, the official name, was Continuity of Government Program. Congress has repeatedly tried to discover the real purpose of Mount Weather, but so far has been unable to find out anything about the secret installation. Retired Air Force General Leslie W. Bray, director of the Federal Preparedness Agency, told the Senate Subcommittee on Constitutional Rights in September 1975, "I am not at liberty to describe precisely what is the role and the mission and the capability that we have at Mount Weather, or at any other precise location." In June 1975, Senator John Tunney of California, a Democrat, who was the chairman of the Subcommittee on Constitutional Rights, charged that Mount Weather held dossiers on at least 100,000 Americans. He later alleged that the Mount Weather computers, described as the best in the world, can obtain millions of pieces of additional information on the personal lives of American citizens simply by tapping the data stored at any of the other 96 federal relocation centers. Several disturbing facts emerge when one researches Mount Weather. One is the conclusion that the complete parallel government exists at the site. 9 federal departments exist there: Agriculture, Commerce, HEW, HUD, Interior, Labor, State, Transportation, and the Treasury. Apparently, at least 5 federal agencies are also in residence: FCC, Selective Service, Federal Power Commission, Civil Service Commission, and the Veterans Administration. 2 privately owned corporations have offices at Mount Weather: the Federal Reserve Crime Syndicate and the U.S. Post Office. How interesting is this? This is sick. And this is all contained in Behold a Pale Horse, page 116, written by the late William Cooper. What makes this all upsetting is that there is a president and a complete set of cabinet officers in residence at Mount Weather. Who were they and who appointed them? Where is such a thing provided for in the Constitution of the United States of America? It's not. Mount Weather is the operational center, the hub of over 96 other underground federal relocation centers scattered across the United States. The majority of these are in FEMA Region 3, which has had a lot of activity as of late in the last several months. I reported on this on a video recently. Actually, it was back in November. There was a lot of scuttlebutt. You never know when the information is going to be accurate, but certainly there is movement that has been going on in FEMA Region 3 that's unprecedented and consistent, and it's still going on to this day. And the majority of these things that were, again, written in William Cooper's great work, Behold the Pale Horse, in 1991, and they're in Pennsylvania, Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, and North Carolina. Well, Pennsylvania, Virginia, West Virginia, and Maryland are FEMA Region 3. North Carolina is a different region, but it is just very interesting or unsettling, however you wish to look at it, about this coincidence. Now, each of these facilities contain computer data banks holding information not on enemy agents, as I said, Soviet diplomats or suspected terrorists, but on American citizen patriots. And a list of other files kept at the facility was furnished to the Subcommittee on Constitutional Rights in 1975. The list included military installations, government facilities, communications, transportation, energy and power, agriculture, manufacturing, wholesale and resale services, manpower, financial, medical, and educational institutions, sanitary facilities, population, housing, shelter, and stockpiles. The committee concluded that these databases operate with a few, if any, safeguards or guidelines. That doesn't surprise me at all. And Mount Weather remains out of control. It's really a very dangerous world we live in, ladies and gentlemen. Things are getting more dangerous every day. The only document that was available to find that attempts to outline some of the statutory authority of Mount Weather is Executive Order 11490. It was drafted by General George A. Lincoln, former director of the Office of Emergency Preparedness, and was signed into law by President Nixon in October of 1969. Executive Order 11490 superseded Executive Order 11051, signed on October 2nd, 1962 by President Kennedy. Kennedy's order used the language, whereas national preparedness must be achieved as may be required to deal with increases of international tension with limited war or general war, including attack upon the United States. Nixon's order began, whereas our national security is dependent upon our ability to assure continuity of government at every level in any national emergency. How's that? That might conceivably confront the nation. Nixon's order deleted any reference to war, imminent attack, and general war from the order and replaced them with the phrase during any emergency that might conceivably occur. Nixon's order, which is the one in effect today, allows the government, in the form of FEMA, to suspend the Constitution for literally any reason they decide to call on a national emergency. I cannot find a plan or executive order anywhere which outlines any procedure or allowance for the restoration of the Constitution after a national emergency has ended. This leads to the obvious conclusion that no restoration of the Constitution is contemplated or desired by those in power. In 1975, Senator Tooney expressed concern. We know from what we've heard in the press that 15,000 names were being maintained by the FBI for detention in an emergency. We know that the IRS has files on individual taxpayers. Look how this rings true today also, again, from the past, from beyond the grave, from the great work of William Cooper. This is happening. Now we know the IRS is targeting, and it's not Obama, it's the secret government. Because look how the Republicans did it in the 1970s, right? Now look at what's going on today with the Tea Party. Interesting, isn't it? Truth is coming to light, ladies and gentlemen. We have to keep shining the light of truth. But don't believe me. Find your own truth There is only one truth. Seek, and you'll find it.